After the Mary and the Witch's Flower video, I got an insane amount of requests, one comment, to cover Studio Ponoc's most recent release, The Imaginary. And here it is. See, if you want me to cover something, just leave a comment. Give me your engagement. But was this movie better than Mary? Is Studio Ponoc the next Ghibli? No! I mean, it's not horrible, it's like a low 6 out of 10 fine movie. But it also shows that there will only ever be one Studio Ghibli. This won't be as fun for me if I don't get to talk spoilers, so if you for some reason care about spoilers for a not that great kids film, I'll give you a quick summary. Girl imagines a boy, they get separated, so the imaginary goes on an adventure in Imagination Land. It suffers from tonal disparity and a lack of satisfying world building, but it has some crazy animation. Could only ever recommend it for the animation, but it's a harmless film. We good? Okay. Let's get into the nitty-gritty. The summary on Netflix said that the two protagonists would be separated, but I didn't think they meant like that. The inciting incident in this movie meant for 5-year-olds is that a kid is run over after being chased by a creepy old man. Huh. And that's a recurring thing in the Imaginary. It would scare the shit out of children while not engaging an older audience. Like the villain's imaginary friend, that girl would make me not be able to sleep for weeks if I saw it as a kid. It also discusses death a lot more than can be expected from a movie of this caliber. Roger, our main guy's character arc, is accepting that he'll basically die at the hands of his best friend, and that it's gonna happen soon. He was also created as a coping mechanism for the girl to deal with her dad's death. The other two imaginaries we get some lore on also have backstories not typical for a kids film. Look at this funny cat with homophobia in his eyes. He was the friend of a child from an abusive family and he can never sleep because the kid always wanted someone to look over him. Oh, this girl looks fun. Her friend died in the hospital, never getting to see the outside world. Oh, speaking of her, there's this scene at the end of Act 2, probably. The three imaginaries are running away from the villain, who's a centuries-old man that eats imaginary friends to gain immortality. Yes, it's stupid. Anyway, as they're almost free, the funniest scene in the movie happens and puts my brain rot on full display. So, Mr. Browning pops his domain expansion, Horrors of Reality, while monologuing about how he has seen history unfold before his eyes. A quick battle later and the heroes are almost scot-free. And then he fucking Makimas the girl. Straight up donuts her. Just a little more sparkles and less blood, but my jaw was still on the floor. The boy and the cat with the eye observer escape, and then they pull the time travel-esque Steinscape ass, "Who's Emily? You're not slick, I see you!" That was one of the only sequences where I thought that this might not be the most mid thing on the planet. Another issue with this movie is that the characters are just pretty flat. Adventurous girl with a deep sadness. Strange looking cat that's just a basic mentor character. The villain, Mr. Brunting, is kinda lacking. He's intimidating when he's on screen and solid design-wise, but for a character that's constantly talking about the inescapable truths of reality, there's very little substance behind his words. All we get from his backstory is, oh, he ate an imaginary friend a couple 100 years ago. And sure, every villain doesn't need some deep and convoluted lore to make us feel bad for them. I don't need to know how you, Baba from Spirited Away, grew up. It wouldn't matter for a portrayal. But when you make a villain whose whole entire shtick is that he's seen centuries upon centuries of history and the terrible reality we live in and don't show any of it, then we have a problem. I wouldn't even want much, just a few flashes of his past when his imaginary betrays him. Just quickly showing his fall from grace and why he decided to eat someone's made-up friend. Alright, we also have another funny reference in the hospital room. He says, "Welcome to the world of imagination," and that's kinda like when Eisen said, "Welcome to my soul society." I never got that far in Bleach. Or when that guy said, "Welcome to the true man's world." I never got that far in Steel Ball Run. Then there's the elephant. I want him dead. One of the worst comic reliefs I've ever seen. I want to bully him and call him names. The other comic relief could have been awesome. It's a slot machine skeleton that's called Cruncher of Bones. except that they play up the wholesomeness of it all, and he can't stop saying crunch like he's a Pokemon. If you just want, this would be a 10 out of 10 movie. The only two characters worth a damn is the mom and Roger. The former is mostly just because of the one scene where she's crying because her husband's dead and her daughter is almost dead. Roger wants to comfort her, but he can't since he, well, isn't real. The first time he even tries to interact with the real world is to stop her tears. Ooh, that's good. But her character arc of accepting her daughter is done well enough. But Roger is the main character for a reason. He actually managed to be a solid character himself, something even many Ghibli protagonists fail at. Because he isn't MC for Act 1 before the girl is run over, which means that he can actually get some characterization that isn't just protag. The movie being technically about a side character gives it some spice, and the fact that he isn't human makes this less of an isekai than most Gromblies. It's all neat, but not flawless. His arc to accept his own death could have been given some more weight. Have him doubt himself a bit more in the imaginary library. He's a bit too sure of himself to go on this quest, when previously he was very concerned with the concept of disappearing. The most important factor when judging a movie like this is its Ghibliness. So, how does the imaginary fare? Well, it's not as in-your-face as marrying the witch's flower. It's basically just talking cat, grandma that knows about magic stuff, and winding pathway to another world. This felt through and through like a British children's book. Not gonna elaborate more on that, because I don't know how to. It just felt different than Mary, even though they both have an English setting. As you've probably noticed by this point, holy shit, the animation goes dummy hard in this movie. Just phenomenal work on the water and the hair and just everything. Except some faces at times, I guess. When there wasn't any character on screen, the animation felt more akin to Disney's last 2D films. Good stuff. I didn't pay attention to the soundtrack in the slightest, so I can't comment on that, but I did notice some lacking creativity in the sound design. The only neat thing was when Roger gets a realistic depiction of a panic attack, the audio sounds like it's underwater. That's cool. But mostly I feel like you could have played up how the characters can't interact with the environment sound-wise, like, why does he have footsteps? Some other stuff that I want to nitpick the ever-living shit out of. The main crux of the world building in the library is that imaginaries can't, well, imagine. Only humans can, but the imaginaries can be actors in these plays. Cool premise, really like it. Goes really underutilized though. It's the most boring segment of the film, and it's really strange how a movie about imagination can lack so much, well, imagination. We only see two kids' dream worlds. One is a generic space battle, and the other is a play where Roger transitions for 5 minutes. Good for her. But I don't know, I just don't buy it. The kid being able to keep this much of a coherent train of thought is unlikely at best, and why wouldn't they place themselves as the main character of their own dream? Another scene where the imagination lacks imagination is the one where it matters most. The climax. It's just a boat chase. Sure, the vehicle changes from a submarine to a speedboat, but that's still so boring. You mean to tell me that the domain clash between the strongest creative in history versus the strongest creative of today couldn't bring wackier results? Have it constantly shift from bleak battlefields to hopeful fantasies, factory to spaceship, graveyard to pirate ship. Play around a bit, there's no rules here, so how could this be what you decided upon? The hub is so stupidly boring and makes the world building so boxed in. Cool, it's a new city every night that we don't get to explore, nor does it have any remarkable features. There's 40 at most members of the parade from Paprika here in a small library. Among them is for some reason Shakespeare, Picasso and Beethoven's old imaginary pals. At first you think, why are all of them here in Britain? And oh, that means that these 40 creatures are the only ones left on the planet and have to facilitate every kid on Earth. But later on, it's revealed that if a kid likes their friend for high enough, they stay together, and it's treated as a rare thing, even though it happens both times we visit a kid's dream. So how did Shakespeare's imaginary not get someone new in like 500 years? That's very nitpicky, so to balance it out, here's a bigger problem. As I said, only kids can imagine, not imaginaries. All well and good. Except for the times when it's shown that Roger is different and can imagine stuff for himself, and is even seen by a real cat, or was that Zinzan? Where does this lead, you ask? Nowhere. It goes nowhere. This, alongside with Mr. Bronting's backstory, are two issues that can't be waved away with, oh, it's up to interpretation and the viewer's own imagination, which is a valid excuse for many Giblos. Why did Kiki stop understanding Gigi? Well, one explanation is that she grew up, or there was some magic at play, or whatever reason you fancy. That doesn't work here. Here, it just feels lazy. I didn't fully expect Roger to Pinocchio, but don't set up a plot point if you're not going to follow through. To end this segment, here are some stuff from my notes that I couldn't fit in anywhere else. 3-hit jab. She's torturing this kid. That's right, your dad, who loved you very much, bought you this. Sauceless bookshop. That's just a switch. How did he get into the hospital? On your boat. Bird transform. Emily's fridge. Oh, the dog's fridge. You know he is evil because he ordered a matcha latte. Could probably spot a reference in the job board. Woke family. Girl boss mom. Trans. Dog dad. Girl. Rainbow. This is probably my record for most complaining in one video, but I hope you can at least see why. Studio Ponoc seems to love their missed potential, and that makes me mad. A problem I forgot to mention that this shares with Mary is that the opening is way too long. In a Griblo you get like 1 or 2 scenes of normalcy before it's time to get wacky. Here it took like 40 minutes. This leaves so little time to explore the whimsical world that they create and leads to it falling apart. But I've now thought about this movie a lot more than it was ever intended for. It's not garbage by any means, I was just disappointed even though I had no expectations going in. Anyway, here's your chores for today. Like, comment, subscribe, follow Twitter, follow BlueSky, and follow Twitch. Do it all and the bomb under your chair won't go off. Bye!